Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you for taking a little bit of your time and joining us right here on NAC TV. I'm Eoin Devereux, as usual, news and sports reporter with the Banner Press, joined almost as usual as well by Casper Wehrhahn, news reporter with the Banner Press as well. Good to have you in, Casper.
Good to be here, and I somewhat, actually completely unintentionally, seem to be wearing some of the colors related to our first topic here, Eoin.
Oh yes, that's true. Hey, nice subtle little pickup there, in its regard to the Viterra Provincial Curling Championships, which as we are recording this show are on right now at the Yellowhead Center in Neepawa, and most likely again, this will be airing after the championships are over, I believe, or something along those lines. We're preempted for at least one of these broadcasts because we are showing some of the event. So if you haven't had a chance to go down there and see it, love to hear your thoughts on how everything played out with it. I've been down there to the arena and seen all the little action that's been going on, all the little things that have been on the go there. It's very interesting to see the behind the scenes of an event of this magnitude and so many different volunteers. I was speaking, Casper, last night with someone who didn't realize that there were about 300 volunteers that had been committed to this event. No, she thought 300 for something like that seems like a lot. Surprisingly, no, though. I mean, that you need that type of number to make this type of event run smoothly, and so far, fortunately, it has been.
Right, yeah, there's definitely a lot to take care of for something like this, and I knew it would require a good amount of volunteers and just hands on the job in general, but I actually didn't realize as well that it took that many to put something like this together, and thinking about it, it makes sense, but it's still kind of mind-boggling.
Oh yeah, and again, when you talk about large numbers of people, another big part of that is the number of participants. There are 32 teams that are competing in this event. So, and here's our front page for this week's edition of the Banner and Press. So, if you want to get a closer look at it, you're going to have to pick up a physical copy anywhere in Neepawa or surrounding communities. But if you're not able to, as usual, you can find it on mywestmen.ca. In fact, about 5 minutes before we started to record this, I was in the back end of the website there. I was uploading the PDFs, uploading the link to issues, and all those little technical things to get it going there. So once you see it, hopefully you'll be able to sort of get a better perspective on some of the events. Because not just that montage of pictures on the front page, inside the paper as well, we've got a bunch of pictures right from the very first draw on Wednesday morning here. Wednesday morning, February 8th. They really kicked off. All 32 teams had the chance to go through, and it's interesting to see such a big event. And again, Casper, I was speaking to somebody last night about, because she's a huge fan of curling, watches it on TV, does the whole thing, and she attended the men's provincials a couple years ago when it was actually hosted at the Keystone Center.
Right.
It may have been the men's provincials, it may have been the Olympic trials, but it was something of that same magnitude. And it's different. Keystone Center is such a huge building. It's 5,000 seats. It's a huge amphitheater style arena. And the Yellowhead, we love the Yellowhead. We do. Don't get me wrong. But the Yellowhead is not the Keystone. It's not Stride Place in Porch La Prairie. It's not even Tundra Oil and Gas in Verdun. It is a small, old-fashioned, have I mentioned old, arena. And it's done well for us for 50. This is how old it is, Casper. It's older than me. That's pretty old. That's pretty darn old. But it's done a magnificent job. And the organizing committee has done a fantastic job of making it look new, making it look like somewhere to be. They've got a huge grandstand set up near the rink where all the VIPs are able to go right now. It's really interesting to see all the time and effort that's put into it. And we're going to be covering this even more in depth in next week's edition, because we'll have all the results. We'll probably have interviews with the winner. We'll probably have interviews with the organizers once they've had a chance to take a deep breath and then relax. Because right now they're in that point where it's just like, oh, everything's go, 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 go.
Yeah, they got to make sure everything is running smoothly and staying pristine for all the curlers out there doing their best on the ice.
What's going to be interesting as well is I didn't get a chance to go down to the arena as it was happening, but here's a little story for you again, behind the scenes. As we were putting our newspaper together the last couple hours before we sent it off via email, internet transfer to our printers in Killarney, all the internet, all the email capacity, even the telephones in Neepawa, just gone, done, out. I'm not going to say which provider it was, but I'm going to say with a certain provider, they had nothing and they had no answers for the most part for us as to why it was happening and how long it was going to be. It wasn't just us. It was everybody that had this certain provider in Neepawa was just blank. It was like being in the 80s, Casper, I'll tell you what. That's what it was. It was like being back in the 1980s. So
yeah, it created a very unique situation for us. So immediately we were thinking of ways to, send the paper to print, because we couldn't send it via the normal means. So we were preparing thumb drives and sending a thumb drive with one person and a thumb drive with another person that normally goes to pick up the papers once they're printed, so that our printer would have them one way or another and be able to actually print the paper. And it was a little strange actually when the internet and phones went down, because my computer seemed to be a little bit ahead of everyone else's in the office, at least in the back room there. It went down and I was just like, okay, it's probably just like a regular, like, it's acting up. I'll restart it and it'll be fine after that restart or a couple restarts. It just happens sometimes. The connection with the other computer is a little finicky here and there. But then everyone lost their internet. Yeah.
But what's interesting, and maybe it's not my story or our story to tell, but I had heard hearsay through the building that, again, NACTV has the privilege and the opportunity to show live many of the games that are taking place down at the Yellowhead for the Provincial Men's Curling Championship. And they started their broadcast, I believe it was the first day at 4 o'clock. And the internet and the emails and everything was affecting them as well. So it was coming up close to 4 o'clock where it's like, oh dear, this could be a thing. But fortunately, from the sounds of it, just before they were going to hit the top of the hour, everything came back into business a little bit beforehand. And for you at home who were waiting anxiously to be able to see those events going on live in the comfort of your own home, you were able to see it and not even know that there were a lot of people in this building probably just going, ah! But that's the fun of newspapers. That's the fun of television sometimes. You never know what's going to happen. And that's why we like to share these types of stories with you behind the scenes. If you want to read the details of the paper, you can pick it up anywhere in Neepawa or on mywestman.ca. This show is more about the craziness that ensues behind the scenes. And this is one of those perfect examples of it. But that's what makes a job fun sometimes. Sometimes this job ain't so fun. Sometimes it is fun. It's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Now let's shift over to a little bit of that. A story I do hope that you will take a few minutes on, a feature story. I actually had a chance to do this story as well 11, 12 years ago when I was working for a radio station in Portage La Prairie. And the curling events were going on in Portage La Prairie. I had an opportunity to speak with this gentleman, ice maker Greg Owasco, well-renowned ice technician who does all the big events in Canada and globally as well. He is one of 2 or 3 individuals. They are the go-to guy when it comes to creating ice for curling. So I had an opportunity once again to interview him about the process and what it takes to turn regular hockey and skating ice into curling. There is very specific differences. I'm sure many of you already know the differences and the significant changes that have to be made to make premier curling ice. If you don't, though, that information is in this story. And Greg was able to walk me through it. Even though I know a little bit, and that's a dangerous thing from time to time, he was able to share some of those other details with me. And I hope that it enlightens you just as it enlightened me as well. Very glad to be able to get some of that information. He talks about the subtle differences of working in a big building like the Keystone Center, like the MTS Center, although now it's called, I think, the Canada Life Center, where the Jets play, Stride Place in Port La Prairie, these big, new, fancy arenas, and all the different sort of quirks that they have to go through to be able to put in quality curling ice in there, compared to a place like the Yellowhead Center, which, as we've established during the show, old.
Yep, yeah.
So there are subtle differences, and he walks me through them, and I was very glad to get a chance to speak with him on that. He's very busy, still busy right now. I mean, after each draw, you've got to look at the ice, inspect the ice, sort of check things out, tweak it as need be. So you need people who are top tier, and Greg is, from all accounts, a top tier individual in this. So I'm glad we're able to share some of those details with you in this week's edition. So that's pretty much what we're going to go through on the curling this week. We're going to have much more in a future edition of the Banner Press, but there were so many other major important things that were occurring this week, and we're very pleased to be able to share them with you in the paper. For example, it was around this time last week it was announced that some major new funding was coming to school divisions all across Manitoba. Provincial government had announced this commitment, and it's a big deal because it's something that a lot of people have been concerned with the last few years, is the budgeting is so tight for so many school divisions. There's certain things they have to decide. We can't do this. We don't have the money for this. Beautiful Plains School Division is an example of that. But fortunately, they are getting out of $100 million, that is new money, being distributed by the province's school divisions. Beautiful Plains is getting about 1.8 million of that. That is a huge deal. Roughly their last budget was about 24 and a half, I think, off the top of my head, 24.8. This new money being allocated is about just over 7% of their total budget. Just, Casper, imagine for me for a moment, if you were to get a 7% raise right now, do you think that would go a long way for you?
Oh, I'd be ecstatic.
Yeah.
Well, and especially something on this scale. Like, I know school division funding is, if I recall correctly, it's been a while since I've done a story like this. If I recall correctly, it's based on enrollment, so it will go off of the previous year. So if you get an increase in students for the year that you're trying to plan for, it can still be tough even if you do get an increase, but this is totally separate and is providing a good boost to that, I feel.
You're right about that, because Beautiful Plains School Division has had to deal with that, where they've had an influx of students, but the money to go to those students hasn't come until the next year because they don't know the exact numbers. But by that time, they have another influx of students that are coming in. Beautiful Plains School Division, of all the divisions in Manitoba, is the second or third, within the top three, for most percental increase in enrollment year over year over the last 5 years. So that makes it a bit of a challenge when it comes to trying to budget, trying to get things done. So this extra 1.8 is going to go a long way. And don't think that we're only talking about Beautiful Plains. We are also pursuing other school divisions within our readership area. They're putting together their details right now, and we are chasing them down. And we are looking forward, hopefully in the near future, to be able to share those details with those schools as well with you. This week it happens. Beautiful Plains were the first ones to get on the phone and get back to us. Always appreciate that. So thank you for that and walking us through. Again, I don't know much. Each and every week I am like a giant lump of clay. I don't know anything, but as we chase down the stories, I get shaped into something that has some sort of basic knowledge, Casper. And then at the end of the week, boom, just into a ball of clay again.
Start the process all over again. Yeah, it can be very interesting on this job, the different things that you learn, and it can be tough to retain that information because it's so much, and usually have to revisit something a few times within a certain period to really keep it in your brain. But we get to cover a lot of different things, and it's great to be able to do that.
And that's it. And this is something as well. I'll throw this out here. That's why from time to time I've run into people that I've done interviews with, or organizations I've done interviews with, and they've talked about, well, this is going on and I don't remember it. Combination of my age, I'm getting up there in years where the memory just doesn't snap the way it used to. And plus as well, respectfully, the most important thing to you sometimes is the fourth thing on my list of to-do for that week, or the third thing or fifth thing on the list for Casper to do that week. So don't think we're being disrespectful if we don't remember it off the top of our heads. It's just, we have dozens and dozens of different groups coming at us, and dozens of different story chases we're trying to track down. So we try and be on top of it, and we try to sort of remember it. But again, lump of clay right here. But we do appreciate when you do come to us with that information, because we do enjoy sharing it with the people of Neepawa and the surrounding areas. Again, much like this, you may not have children, you may not have youngsters that go to school, but it still does affect you through property taxes and whatnot, and all these little things. So this money, whether you think so or not, is a positive for you as well. So hopefully you will take a moment or two, check that out in the paper. All right, let's head down the road a little bit to our neighboring community of Minnedosa. Recently, I took a trip down there, and actually that was the weird thing, Casper. Went about 5 minutes out of Neepawa. It was evening, it was dark. I'm getting to that age where I don't like driving anymore in the evening, but I did it anyway. Yeah, I used to hear that all the time from my parents and people of their generation. It was like, I don't get it, I don't understand. But now I'm getting to that point of my age where it's like, oh, I get it now. You'll get there too one day.
Oh, believe me, I'm already there. I don't know. I can do it. I'm not a huge fan of it. It's oncoming traffic with the lights. It's a strain on my eyes, 'cause I have sensitive eyes, so I don't particularly like it. My dad doesn't care. He'll do it whenever.
Well, the thing is, about 5 minutes out of Neepawa, the snowstorm just suddenly went blowing in, and I'm driving like this. It's like, oh geez, maybe this meeting isn't so important after all. But I powered through, got to Minnedosa, was able to get to the convention center there that's near the old arena for a very important, very significant strategic meeting that's outlining the future prosperity of Minnedosa for at least the next 5 years. Now that story you can find as well on the pages of the Banner Press. You can find it on page 7 of this week's edition. Answers aplenty at the Minnedosa Town Hall meeting. There were about 85 people, citizens of Minnedosa, that came in and learned a little bit of information from the mayor, Ken Cameron, as well as the CAO, and several members of council who were there, as well as the Minnedosa Chamber of Commerce. This was a very concerted effort to bring transparency of what's going on to the citizens of Minnedosa. They want to be able to do this on a regular basis, maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, be able to sit down with anybody and say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is why we can't do this, this is why we are doing this. That's very important. Now you might think to yourself, well, isn't that what they do during regular council meetings? Well, yeah, that is. It's just like the same here in Neepawa. But when's the last time you attended a council meeting? Be honest. I won't blame you. Just between you and me, if I didn't have to attend council meetings, I wouldn't either. but I do. So I do. So, and again, it's valuable information that you learn on a consistent basis. It's kind of interesting, Casper. I say that I say that attending these meetings. When I didn't attend this week's meeting, I just stayed home and relaxed. That's why I appreciate NAC TV is always there recording the meetings. That way I can watch the recording a couple days later and actually get some of that information. Thank you, NAC TV, for that, for making my job a little bit easier. Again, I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here. We're supposed to be in Minnedosa. The mayor walked us through a couple different things that are going on there in regard to the strategic plan to make Minnedosa a viable community in the long term. They talked about the building of the new arena, the Minnedosa Regional Event Center. MRAC is how it's sort of nicknamed over there. That $8.6 million facility that they're building, that's going to be done this summer. They're going to be opening their doors for hockey and skating and all sorts of different activities come the fall. It's very exciting. And the most exciting thing about that as well is they've actually been able to keep it within budget, more or less. Roughly, I think it was around 8.3 or 8.4 is what they had budgeted for it. It currently is at 8.6. And for a facility of that size, and quite honestly, with the level of inflation we've had to deal with this past year, for them to only be about 300 or so thousand over, that's amazing. That's remarkable right now, and the citizens of Minnedosa, I hope, are going to be very happy with that. They talked about what's going to be happening with the old arena. They were just very open about the whole thing, about a new facility, an assisted living facility that they're trying to bring to Minnedosa, about some subdivision development happening along 9th Avenue that they want to get going. Because the housing crunch, we think we've had housing crunch here in Neepawa, and we did, but we've been able to get through it. Minnedosa is dealing with what we had dealt with 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago. They're dealing with it right now, and there's a bigger problem because they're in the valley portion of it, so there's only so much space within the valley where you're able to build. Neepawa, we're on a nice little flat little area. We're able to expand out a little bit more easily than they are. They have that challenge, and they're trying to deal with it as best they can. So I do hope that you'll take a moment or two to go through it and see what's happening just a little bit down the road. But if you don't want to, then hopefully you'll see what's going on a little bit down the road right here in Neepawa, down the road to Arts Forward. Because there's a brand new exhibit down there, Casper, that you were able to get a sneak preview of, weren't you?
Yes, it went up just earlier this week. I guess technically last week, but start of February. It's an exhibit by Victoria Prince, who went to the University of Manitoba, graduating in 2023, so actually this year, and has first-class honors degree, so that's quite outstanding. But her work is inspired by anatomical research that she has done herself, just going through and finding different things that people have done, like I believe it was like cell lighting, cell-stained illuminations. There we go. I found it as I was glancing at the page. So it's a very unique exhibit, I'd say. It has black pen drawings of neurons, some expressions of memories that she's made, and some photographs as well, some heart studies there. A unique exhibit. I haven't been to one like that before, so it's very interesting to go in and see these studies that she's made and how she expresses them.
It's very interesting. There's a few visual representations of the artwork in this paper, but as great as they are, it doesn't do it the justice to be able to see it with your own eyes, to be able to walk into the building, see it, and experience it like that. So hopefully you will be able to go down to Arts Forward before it moves on and experience it for yourself. You were out and about just pretty much almost as much as I was last week, Casper, because although this trip was a little bit shorter, you just had to go right across the streets for this special celebration of a BMO.
Yeah, for people who may not know, some perhaps do, BMO was actually celebrating its 125th birthday or anniversary this week. Actually on February 3rd is when the celebration happened. The official date that this would have been was February 1st, but they wanted to be able to invite the community out to have some cake and enjoy the day with them. So February 3rd is when they held that. And well, it was interesting to go there. A nice, relaxing sort of visit that I had with the branch manager there and the staff as well. And they had out, of course, the cake, which was delicious. I was treated to a piece myself. But just looking at what they had set out, because they had some of their accomplishments throughout the years, some old historic photos that they had around the office, and even just some mementos of the staff there too throughout the years. They had a photo book there. So that was a great visit there, and I hope everyone who stopped by had a wonderful time as well. But the history for that branch is on page 9. Be sure to take a look at the details. It's been in the community for quite some time, so it's awesome for them to be able to celebrate that landmark.
It really is. It really is. So hopefully you'll take a moment or two and be able to share it through the pages of the Banner and Press. We're winding down a little bit. Let's do a quick little tap into another story you did this week, Pins and Pals Guild. Guide? Guild?
Guild, yeah.
Guild, yeah. So I got to admit, again, when I read the story, I didn't know much. I've heard the name of the organization before, but I didn't know much about them. So this really did sort of educate me on some of the history and some of these significant things that there are going on here. But you're a better representative since you wrote it, to be able to share those details than me.
Yeah, I won't go on too long because I know we're going to be running short, but for anyone who doesn't know, Pins and Pals Quilt Guild is a quilt guild from out of town, Gladstone, Plymouth area. And I was speaking to someone from there, Karen, and I apologize if I pronounced the last name incorrectly, but Cormier, potentially?
Cormier is what I've usually seen,
I think I would pronounce that.
Yeah.
And just sort of about what they've been doing a little bit annually every year for Christmas for the residents at Third Crossing Manor, and how thankful that not only her group but the Third Crossing Manor residents are for the support that they've been getting every single year for this. They've been doing Christmas gifts for the Third Crossing Manor residents, stockings in previous years, and more recently gift bags to accommodate more goodies, just to make their Christmas a little bit more bright and lively, and just spread the festive cheer. In addition to that, the support has been helping to have them do extra recreational activities, taking care of plants, etc. So it means a lot to them, and definitely check out the full story.
That's right. There's so much more we could share with you here on Story Behind the Stories, but there's just simply not enough time. And but that's why you need to pick up a copy of the Banner and Press. Once again, if you are in Neepawa, anywhere around town, you should be able to track a version of it down. In many of our outlying communities as well. Hopefully you'll be able to see one of the little newspaper bins that we've got there. And again, if not, mywestman.ca is usually a pretty good source. Except, of course, when the email and the internet's down like it was the other day, then you can't. But it's back up for now, so yay technology. There's so much. We have a Valentine's Day page that we put together. We have a special shout out to the Neepawa Farmers Senior A hockey team. The regular season has come to a close and they are starting off the playoffs in the Tiger Hills Hockey League. Hopefully you'll go down once they've converted it back to hockey to the Yellowhead Center and support the team in the first round of the playoffs. And if you have any questions for us as well, or any story ideas, we always appreciate it. You can contact us at news@neepawabanner.com. 476-3401, the number we can be reached out at. Usually, as of late, I've been reached out by people who are saying you made a spelling error, and I do, or an error here and there. I do apologize for that. we do so many different things. We have so many different hats on. We don't like it when these little things get by us. So, if you got to call us out on it, you got to call us out on it. We do appreciate it. It stinks in the moment, but we do appreciate it in the grand scheme. Mm-hmm. So once again, Casper, thanks for coming in and sitting down with us as usual this week.
Yeah, thanks again for having me, and thank you for joining us.
Once again, thank you, yes, for joining us here at The Story Behind the Stories.